those whom I haven't spoken to this year yet. It's a bit late, but straight from the heart. My glasses. Before I forget, please switch off your telephones, or they will be confiscated when they do ring. And before I forget also, next week we hope to have a lecture on sign language, but this will be in Arabic and sign. So those of you who don't understand Arabic, it's good that you know in advance that it will be in Arabic. And then tonight we have Sherif Bakr, who's standing right beside me, on publishers and translation, and he told me that he wants a bit of an interactive lecture, so if you do have questions, you don't have to wait until the end, but you can put up your finger instead of just shouting it out. Put up your finger and then I'm sure you will respond. Sherif Bakr studied in the English school in Heliopolis and graduated from the Faculty of Economics and Political Science at Cairo University. He took over the family business in 1997, which is Arabi Publishing and Distributing. Is that correct? Yes. He worked in all fields of publishing, from warehouse to accounting, from sales, marketing, editorial, and even foreign rights. He's actually working, I cannot disclose this. Okay. He's looking to translate a very popular book these days on the top of the bestseller list in Holland about the English city, the London city on finance, Joris Leijendijk, who's also a well-known figure. You studied with him in Cairo University, yeah? When was that? The 90s, long time ago. But he has a bestseller, been on the top of the bestseller list for weeks now, months maybe. He discusses all these sneaky economics that you have in the London city, making himself a rich man, I suppose, by now. But at least he did it in a fair way. Sherif Bakr is now an elected board member of the Egyptian Publishing Association, and he is responsible for the Development and E-Publishing Committee. And having spotted the chance of bridging the Arab world with the rest of the world, his aim is to build bridges based on books and culture. He's been invited to the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2008 as part of the invitation program for international publishers, and the year after as part of a fellowship program with 15 other fellows from another 14 countries. He's been invited as well to many other book fairs and publishing events to represent Egypt and the Arab world. And for example, he went to the Turin International Book Fair in 2010, Prague International Book Fair in 2011, and where he also addressed the visitors. ITEF Professional Meetings Fellowship Program of Turkey in 2012, and MICA, Mercado de Industrias Culturales Argentinas, in 2013. So he's an active man, and he's here this evening to talk to us about translation, publishers and translation. So give him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for everyone. Thank you for coming. But first, before we start, may I ask you all to stand up for 1 minute, solidarity with Ashraf Fayyad, the Palestinian poet who's being executed in Saudi Arabia for what he wrote. And this stands against everything we're doing around the world here, of freedom of speech. And now, around the world, everybody's reading poetry for him. I could not read poetry, but at least we can show solidarity. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's just to show that we are here or supposedly for the freedom of speech, that we, even if we don't like or we don't accept, we have to accept that there's someone has some freedom. And since this day was even selected early December when we started with this, and all around the world they chose today to do readings for poetry in solidarity with him. So thank you for showing solidarity. For the topic of today, we're talking about translation and publishing. I thought, what should I talk about first? I thought of laying out the ground first by speaking about what's translation, what's publishing, what does a publisher do, and what does a publisher do in Egypt, because there's a bit of difference between here and around the world, because the market here is not really mature enough, not really ready enough for lots of things. So we will go through very fast what we do, and please, you can stop me, you can raise your hand and ask if you want, and we'll try to take as many questions and steer the conversation in the direction that you want. First, what does a publisher do? Supposedly, we either get a manuscript, if it's in Arabic, we get it in advance, someone sends it to us, the author, or someone selects something, or with some publishers and some topics, we can ask a specialist to write about a certain topic that we're interested in. If there is like a certain topic, we find the gap and we want to fill it, we ask a specialist or an author or something to write about. This is in the non-fiction section. In the fiction, poetry, theater, short stories, we usually receive submission by authors, and we have to review this first. So either the publishing house have reviewers in topics, or they have their own committee that reads whatever material they receive, and then after receiving this, reading it and seeing whether it works with the publishing or not, we move to the second part, to the contracts. There should be a signed contract with the author. Unfortunately, some publishers don't have contracts, but right now I think more and more publishers have this because they are afraid of all the lawsuits they hear about, so they'd rather have a contract. But I would say that most of the contracts in Egypt is not really law-proof. There is a lot of problems in it. It can be easily defeated in any courtroom. So we try to educate publishers about how to write contracts, what are the checklists of a contract that should be there, but still it's not working very well. Next, we would have some editor. This job, I would say, does not exist in the Arabic market in general, though now more and more publishers have editors who read the stuff really, and either work with the author while he's writing them, or works with the whole text at the end. An editor is not a proofreader. This is different than the guy who checks mistakes and spelling. This is a different job. Editor works with the theme of the book, whether it's right, whether it's wrong, if there are some running sentences, if there are some parts that needs to be omitted, some things that is illogical. I think we have a very good editor here with us now, and she's been working in this for some time. Next, we have also the layout, next part, which is usually some kind of templates for all the books. Fiction would have a certain template, non-fiction would have one. And one of the missing things also in Egypt is the style book of a publishing house. Every publishing house should have their own style book, which is very clear of how they deal with whatever book. Sometimes they give it to their authors to write in this, or they fix the book when it comes back in this. Style books may be known to some journals, newspapers in Egypt, but not to publishers and their series. So that's something missing also. After that, we go for the cover design, and then the printing, marketing, and sales. And we have to, at the end, pay the author when the book is sold, hopefully. This is a normal cycle of an Arabic book. But if we have a translated book, this cycle it's a bit longer. It starts by the selection process. And this selection process has to start whether in Egypt, through the internet. You can check out websites, you can check out some synopses of publishers. There's a lot of ways to find this online, but I still believe that online is something, and meeting face-to-face is something different. I was lucky enough to travel almost around the world in search for books. As you said, I've been from Buenos Aires to Amsterdam, Turkey, Paris, Turin, lots of countries, or going to the Frankfurt Book Fair, these international book fairs where there really is everybody's there, so you can meet people from Norway, from Korea, from everywhere, and see the books live and discuss. It's more important, our job is more of a discussion around the books, not just reading a page saying what the book is. And even better, if you get a chance to meet the author, that's a great thing. We have some very good experience of inviting authors here. We invited Hector Abad from Colombia. It was a big, big success. And lately we invited Jonas Luscher from Switzerland. It makes a hell of a difference meeting the author in person. Sometimes I like the book, and when I meet the author, I love it. It really transforms with even the readers. So now in Egypt, more and more culture activities and places like this gives a chance for us to meet authors, to discuss books, to talk about life even. And that makes a hell of a difference reading and understanding books. So we do the selection, whether through a book fair, internet, Goodreads is a very important thing that we always check with the book. Even if we meet the author and read about it, we see what other people are saying about it. There are some editorials that are being published by some institutes. The Dutch have one. They print 10 Dutch books every year, or every book fair. Actually, they do one for London and one for Frankfurt. The German does one, books from Germany, and they do an Arabic version of it. The French are trying. Other institutes around the world, they always have some kind of selected works, which sometimes also they support in translation. So it gives also a benefit of this. We have from the news, if someone is following international newspapers, reviews, something coming, something being transformed into a movie. If you follow, like I heard, for instance, about 50 Shades of Grey from the news first, about the big success that the book is doing before reading it or seeing it. So sometimes you have to follow on this. One last thing is sometimes you get a suggestion from translators. This works very well with languages that we can't read. So I don't read Spanish, for instance, so maybe a Spanish translator comes to me with a book that he thinks is interesting. And that's always a plus for a translator, because if I find a translator coming interested in a book, then I'm sure at least that his work will be good. And then remains to be seen whether the book works for us or not. That's another thing. If we agree and we find a book from one of these channels, we go to the negotiation part, which is not easy, and this is something really you have to learn by time and doing a lot of mistakes in the beginning. And then you start to negotiate the rights. The rights is either with the publishing house, the international publishing house, or with an agent who represents the author in the rights. The negotiation is not always easy for us, because we have to always explain the situation in the Arab world, and that €1 equals £8, and stuff like that, and the book here is cheaper, and you have to go through how many copies would you sell, and the percentage, and you discuss till you reach whether there is an advance or no, and the royalties, how much percent of the sales of the book. Because you pay them like an author, a percentage of the sales of the book, And sometimes if the author is really known, they ask for an advance payment that you pay whether you print or not, sell or not. So that's always not easy. Also, you have to negotiate, which we don't do, but I would really advise our fellow publishers here to negotiate the subsidiary rights. There are some rights that you have to get, like the electronic rights of the book, because now we have platforms for ebooks in Egypt, though it's not really working, but you have to be prepared for it in advance. So whether you want to have an audiobook, ebook, TV and series, but we don't do this with translation. Usually, if someone is interested, they will go directly to them. And then finding the good translator. That's really always another problem, because you're left with some known names in every language who translate a lot. I personally don't always prefer them because they are becoming very business-like when you work with them. They have a lot of work. They work with the big institutions. They always don't meet their deadlines, because they have a lot of work. I prefer to work with younger ones. So to find a young translator is not easy, but it's worth trying. It has its problems. We can discuss them on a later stage when you have a problem with younger translators, but you're left with either known ones, with ones that you can find, whether there are websites that have translators that you can request a translator and see, but you're never sure. But one thing I would say, if you use these things, select one in your hometown, or at least in your country. Because if it's outside the country, it's really, really a problem. Can turn into really bad. Don't forget to sign a contract with the translator, because for some reasons it might protect problems in the future if you're prepared from the beginning to this. So also a contract here is important. At least has some basic info of who's doing what and for how much. Supposedly also you have after that a reviewer who should review the translation of the book. Make sure that the translator didn't miss anything, didn't misunderstand what you've written, what's there. Sometimes translators either know English very well or know Arabic very well. It's hard to find one who's good in both. So he either understands the English very well, but he writes not so good Arabic, or it's common, which is really hidden and nobody would know of unless they read the original. The Arabic would be very well, that they can bury the misunderstanding they don't get from English. So when you read the English, you discover that they translated something different. Though it's good, but they kind of rewrite the book in their own way. And they are usually like doctors and engineers and stuff who likes to translate. Or like, I would say, some kind of unsuccessful author. So he prefers to write the words of someone else, but in his own style. We have someone to correct, as we said. He does the proofreading of the grammar, spelling, to make sure that it's correct, whether the text or the text. And we go as well with the layout, the cover, and the sales in the beginning. What do a translator wants from a publisher? What do you think a translator wants from the publisher?
Give up the quality of the translation.
The translator wants from the publisher?
Between the integrity of the translation and
the integrity of the translation. Okay, that's one thing. What else? On the cover of the book? Okay, what else? That's the most important thing, I would say. Money first. The translator wants to get paid. And getting paid is quite different, because usually the official way of doing this is by word, and you calculate the whole words of the text, and you divide them by 250, which is the number of pages, the words per page. And if you're German, you will do by character, and you will do 1,800 per page, because the Germans are more accurate, because some big words, some small words, so they want to be very accurate, so they do it by character. And then you give a price for the page, and the price for the page should have some of course, your ability as a publisher, but also the quality expected from the translator. Some translators always meet time, no matter what, with a very bad quality, and you can see some books they are doing very well, and then at the end you find him dropping because he was doing really fast. So it's also a challenge to decide when and how much. That's always a balance that you can keep, but I will give some numbers here for whether publishers or translators. If you want to calculate a book, you usually use like 4 pages per day. That's an average, sometimes less. Sometimes maximum 6 pages, I would say, per day. More than that, it would be very fast translation. Less than 2, that would be very strange. Also because at least if you're writing an idea or something, you don't do a paragraph per day or something, but that would be like cheating numbers for you if you want to know. Or we have some translators here, yes?
I just want to ask, regardless of the kind of the book, or, like, this is a standard.
No, it's not a standard, it's just a way to calculate. If you have a 300 page, you would know how long it will take. Can't take forever.
Or it's engineering, or it's mathematics.
If you are a full-time or a freelance even translator, then you minimum do 2 pages per day. If you're doing other jobs as well, but if you do less than that, actually, I don't think they do this. If they're working in several projects, they would make like 1 day for each project. So 1 day you would do 3-4 pages, and then after 2 days you would do again. Some translators, it's really personal. It's like writing and stuff. You don't know how they do it. Some is focused on one project. Some can very well do like every 2 hours work on something if he has multiple projects. It depends on the translator, and at the end you see the quality, if it reflects on this or not. Some translators like to give you the whole. We like to work, for instance, as a publishing house, we like to work chapter by chapter. So if there is a problem, we can fix it from the beginning. But some translators refuse, and they say they want to do the whole book, and then they review the whole book before they send it to us. Some translators read the whole book before translating, which is supposedly, and some don't do. I remember with a book we had, after like chapter 6 or 7, the translator called us and said that, oh, I thought that he's a man and now he's a woman, so we have to change chapter 4, all the he's to she's and stuff like that, because the name was strange. But I mean, it shows, of course, that the translator, how they work, and it shows that we are not going to work again with this translator in this sense, though we fixed the book, but it was not a nice thing to do. It was a bit of a rough start, to say. What else? I also want to talk to translators in general, if they want to present themselves to publishers, how they can do this. If a translator wants to translate a work or to contact a publisher, we get some very strange things. First, like translator coming with a book that we don't work in this field at all. If they just check the website, they should know this publisher, what type of books they translate, so they can send the right book to the right publisher. They sometimes also come with I remember like Blue Rose at hotmail.com, these strange names coming. So I would never, and they don't even sign the mail sometimes, like best, and they don't try. Sometimes the mail itself is not enticing at all for a publisher to work with them. Sometimes it's written in English with a lot of mistakes, and they want to translate from English, so it tells a lot. So it has to be professional, it has to have the right context, it has to have a CV, it has to have an extract, and they have to tell me why should we translate this book, or why should we work with them. What is their USP, as we say, unique selling propositions? What's so unique about you that I have to work with you? What work have you done? Or if you are not, why are you very enthusiastic about this work? Or in general, do you really like translation? Are you willing? I worked with translators who that was the first time to translate. Some very young, like they were in the 22 years old, just finished university, and they were even studying engineering, but they had the love, the passion for the book. And I got an excellent outcome. It needed a lot of fixing, but it had the quality. And they had the spirit to do this. And some were somehow more established translators, and they had the worst thing. And those who teach translation are not that good. That's not a judgment, of course, on everybody, but in general, they follow, you feel like they are correcting an exam. They have to translate each word. They have to go through page by page, or they have this. They have this feeling that they have to go through each and every word because someone is correcting after them. It's not really the spirit that we need. Any questions so far?
I was wondering, when you select books to translate, or to have translated, do you work on a collection of books, and that you sometimes might choose, this should be in our collection, although we may not make much money on it, or maybe we even have to lose some money on it? Do you make choices like that? Or is it always based on the possibility to make money?
I always say that we're not an NGO. We're here to make money, so we should make selections that we think it should work with the market. But in my personal publishing house, I have a 10% that I can risk every year. I put a 10%, which is like 1 or 2 books that I can really test the market, do something crazy, do something out of the box, do a big book, do a non-fiction that does not exist. Because also I don't like to say that I know the market, I know what works, I know what should be read and stuff like that. No. Maybe there is a book that I think it doesn't work, and it happens that it works, and to tell you the truth, it happens a lot in general, in Arabic or in translation. Sometimes you think, well, okay, I'll just take this book and add it to the, you have a free slot and you add a book, and it becomes like really successful. And vice versa. Sometimes you bet on a book and you think it's like, yeah, that's it, the book, and then you find like very weak response, which happens. You have a question?
How is your experience about professional marketing of the translated fiction? I want to know more about it.
How to market translated fiction? Well, it depends, marketing and selection and the whole this thing. One of the things I learned very well from the German publishing industry in general and the German publishing courses which I took is to define your target group. If you know who you're selling for, you know how to market, how to select the cover, which word to use with a translator, and you remember because Muhammad is one of my translators, so we go through discussions a lot about his work and about even the selections of which words to use for each thing, based on knowing our group. So if you have a very definitive target group, do they read magazines or do they go to Facebook? Do they have more time on Instagram? Like for instance, one of the things I discovered that in Egypt, Facebook is number 1. Everybody is on Facebook somehow. Twitter comes number 2. Instagram comes for a younger age. In the Gulf, it's different. In the Gulf, everybody, our target group is all on Instagram. They don't use Facebook. Very rarely. They have accounts, but they very, very minimal interaction, and they love Twitter. So Twitter is for older age there. Instagram is for all the ladies and the men there. I don't know, it's kind of an undercover community, but they sell books on Instagram there very well, which was a big shocking for me because at the time we didn't have an Instagram account. So first thing we did, we started an Instagram account for the publishing house, and that works very well in the Gulf. So it differs from one country to the other, and it's really interesting to see the interaction and the age of people. I sometimes stalk our people who like our page and go to their pages and see who they are. And I discovered that so far they are fitting my target group always. Not always. I mean, we have like 50% of our, actually 48 exactly percent of people who follow us between the age of 18 and 24. So it gives us a clear vision of who's following us, and another 37 from 25 to 34. So 85% of our readers between 18 and 30 and 35. Yes?
Do you have your books online? Like, can we buy the books online or anything, or do we have to buy?
You mean e-copies or physical copies? We have both. We have both actually. You can sell, there are a lot of platforms now where you can buy the books, whether outside Egypt, not so many, like Nila and Furat is the main one. Inside Egypt you have you have Nifsak, they are always have a section for books, but it's not very active. Because like Amazon even, which is like a big online, they make their money not from books, they make their money from electronics. If you go to Souk, it's mobiles, perfumes, and gadgets that makes the money. Because the percentage of book doesn't make much. So, e-books, we have some platforms, we have our books there. It's not really picking up yet, but we want to be there. So when we buy the rights, we usually buy the rights for e-books as well, and we make an e-book version and wait and see, but we don't have the readers yet. But maybe next week actually, or the week after, Google Play Books will launch the Arabic. So maybe Google can transform the industry, and as they said, instead of downloading a pirated copy because you can't have it, maybe you will think and buy a good copy when it's done well. So we'll have to wait and see if they are. But we, as a publishing house, we wanted to be ready in advance. So we always try to get the e-book rights for our books as well. Amazon has very strict rules, not so easy. Like one of the stupid things they have, you have to have an index for a novel. So I always say, what novels? Some novels even they don't have one zoom, don't have chapters, but they said no, you have to have a table of content at the end for the books. We have a major problem in the Arab world. We don't believe in metadata, and metadata for books, if you don't have it, then you don't exist in the market. So publishers don't do this up till now. So your books, even if they are online, it's hard unless you know really what you want. And you're searching for the name of the book, you can find it. If you're looking, it's very difficult to find books. There were some initiatives for audiobooks, but nothing really materialized. It's very complicated. It's far more complicated even than ebooks. You need to have a VO, a talent, to read the book, and it's very easy to be pirated. So you will sell 5 copies at the end. So, and the rest will be copies of the file. So it's kind of, and we don't have the culture for it. I myself read a lot of audiobooks in English, but Arabic, I have to read. So when I have time, I read Arabic, and in the car, I listen to audiobooks in English. So
it's possible maybe because of the lack of the audio voices.
Maybe we don't have. Still, it's coming. Everything's coming very soon. More questions?
Is it true that the price of the book for the public is usually triple its production cost?
First, the defined production cost. Because some people think that production cost, or some publishers even think that the production cost is the money you pay for the printer. It's the paper and the printing. So sometimes some books would cost like £3-4, and you would like price them for £50, for instance. So it's more than 10 in this case. But actually, to really cost a book, you have to add the price of the electricity, the price of the editors, the unhidden cost that you pay, the royalties that you pay for if it's outside or for an author. Then the £3 would be like £12.
This is the gross cost.
This is
the cost to produce, to publish a book.
Yeah.
Electricity and printing.
Exactly.
The author and the gross cost.
Exactly.
It's sold by triple all this gross cost.
More than triple, I would say sometimes. Sometimes, because you give a 50% discount, so you have to make sure to cover this. I remember we did this comparison with books from Germany, and we had the same costing, though we cost in a different way, but at the end what they pay and what they get is exactly like us. So it was a bit strange because we did it without any rules, like, yeah, this book I would it would be £50. But then, and if you notice, you will find that the same size of the book differs in cost in Egypt, and completely differs than this in Lebanon and Jordan, for instance, or the Gulf. And what's very strange, that people accept this from Lebanon to pay £120, £150. Like this week, 1Q84 for Haruki Marokani, the first part of it was released in Arabic, and it's £150. If an Egyptian publisher did this, it will cost far less, and people will think that he's very expensive.
Some publishers would use limited editions, but this is limited edition. Why?
It's collector's items. Some people want to feel, if you want to price a book very expensive and people still buy it, you would do some unique stuff for the book. You can have like a paper cloth for the cover. You can have very polished paper inside. You can have 4-color thing. Like there is, for instance, a book now about Nugget, and it's £180. It's very gloss paper. It's 4 colors. It has a very nice layout. So it's not, and I want to ask the publisher about the price, and I think he said there was a book about Kulthum, and it cost 1,000 Egyptian pound, and it was sold in the past. So it's something for collectors, not for the mass production. Yes, Muhammad? You have a question? Okay.
Did you always buy the rights?
I have to buy the rights. Unless there is also 1 or 2 conditions that if the book is out of rights in Europe or in general, if the author died 70 years ago, then the book is like this year, I think, will be out of right or out of copyrights. Everybody can publish.
60 years, it's 15,
50 in Egypt, 70 abroad. And Brecht is, and Hitler, this year, My Kampf is now published in German with no copyrights that you have to pay for anybody, so it depends on the rules, but yeah, you have. And some authors would love to give you their books for free. That's very common if you just know the right author and the right book. For us, and this is a privilege I would say also for Egyptian publishers, some authors, they would love to see their books in Arabic. Just to have it opening from the other direction, you know, from right to left, and like seeing their name in a very calligraphic way, they would, I love it. And they would like really feel for it. And I get some thank you letters from authors for having their books in Arabic. When they see the cover and everything, they would say like, wow, we're very nice to have our books in Arabic, and they would waive every right. Even if the publisher is very adamant, the author would be more interested. Yes?
What about censorship?
That's an issue. Okay. Censorship. First, I believe that there is no total freedom in everything. Everybody has his own red line. Every country has its own red line. Every publisher inside the country have their own kind of personal censorship. So we, as a publishers, we have our own policies. What do we want? What do we don't? I believe that everybody is free to publish what they want. But for instance, like I'll tell you a small story, a secret story about, for instance, 50 Shades of Grey, which is a very pornographic book, I would say. Some Arabic publisher bought the rights for the book, I know. And I said, how would you translate first? Because some translators even, they leave the work in the middle if they find some sex scenes or something. They refuse to do this. And it sometimes causes a problem because I had this experience one with an editor. She refused to edit the book because there were one scene and it was like very, very, very minimum. She said, we don't have to know this. They can just go in the room and come out and stuff like that. She was like, you know, editing herself the thing. Also, we didn't work together again, but anyways, some translators do this, some publishers do this. But when you buy translation, you can't edit this. You have to ask first. Some accept. If the author accepts this, like you tame, I would say you tame the scenes. But for a book like 50 Shades of Grey, it's impossible. It's 90% of the book. There is no editing.
I think this is really unfair for the reader to think that they're reading a translated version. At least the publisher should tell us
Yeah, but if some publishers do this without telling the author, without telling the reader. But if they tell the author at least, and he accepts, like some scenes are very graphic and we don't need this, it would cause a problem. It's like editing, like if you're talking to an author and you tell him to edit this part because some books, for instance, if you have this will forbid the whole book from going to this country, for instance, or to the Gulf area or stuff. This is a decision that's taken in the kitchen, as we say, before we do. If everybody's mutually understanding and accepting, then it's not a problem. Maybe the reader would have to read in the original then, or would have to accept this. But it's life. That's real life. So with the 50 Shades, I'm not saying it's fair. I'm saying it's life. It's unfair. Sometimes you can say it in an introduction. I always like, if I have a story of the book, I write an introduction as a publisher. Some people hate this, and they tell me, we hate this, I don't like to read an introduction from the publisher. I say, just skip it. If you don't like to read, just skip it. We don't really say, but if there is an interesting story about the book, if there is something that you should take care of, and the book, if there is some culture problems that you will face, you have to know about, I have to tell you that. I feel it's my duty. And actually one of the stories got me 1 hour on TV because of the introduction of the book and not the book itself. So sometimes it can be really interesting if you have the right story of the book. Back to the 50 Shades of Grey, we haven't finished. I asked the publisher, what would you do? At first he's really having trouble up till now for the translation. He did the whole translation of the book and he threw it away because it was very bad, and he's doing a new translation and he's going to do a fake publishing house for it. Can't answer this. You will know, but you actually wouldn't know because he will have a fake publishing house. So it has
Egypt or Lebanese?
It will have a fake logo on the book, and you will know when it's out. You will know who he is. But it will have a fake logo because if he puts his logo, he will be banned from Arab publishers' book fairs. So it will be a big problem for him. So he doesn't want to lose his own business. So he will do a fake publishing house just to publish this book. Question here?
Have you ever had any problems with censorship of books?
No.
Books confiscated or something like that?
We, as a publishing house, never. Some publishers might have this. Very, very rare, I would say, in Egypt. There is no rules really, but it's very rare. Some books are published in Egypt with no problems, and when they go to a publishing to a book fair, and while they're coming back, they are censored there. So with the government here, you can never really trust how it works. I don't know, and I'm sure they don't read. I'm sure. Question? Yeah.
Would you comment on the appallingly low rates in Egypt compared with other international rates for translation?
That's a very good question about the rates on the. It's the same with the prices of the book. Like I translated a book, a Norwegian book, and I sell it with all the costs and everything with £35. It's sold in Norway with 350 krona, and 1 krona is equal to £1. So if you're getting paid, you will not be getting paid like in Egypt. So you don't compare, you compare an apple to an apple, you don't compare this. Even between here and Lebanon, the prices of 1 cup of coffee in Lebanon versus here, it's different. So you have to be fair to this point, not to compare, but yes, there is also always this debate internationally, by the way. In the Netherlands, publishers are not happy with what they, translators are not happy with what they paid, and they always complain. Everywhere in the world there is always this debate. How much is fair? But I know, for instance, I was discussing once with a Finnish translator. She's an Arab who lives there, and I wanted to translate a book. And she asked for a very high amount, which I could not do and I didn't do. But she said, I pay 60% taxes. So if you pay 60% taxes here, also we can discuss the price. Stefan?
Yeah. From your annual production, how many titles are translated and how many are in how do you choose? We didn't talk about the Arabic program now because the focus is translation. But how do you choose them?
We as a publishing house, we have a very clear vision and strategy. We do academic non-fiction books, some non-fiction general books, and then the fiction side is all translation except for one Egyptian author that we do. But other than that, it's all. So I get a lot of submissions from lots of writers, wannabe writers or friends writers even. They keep pushing me to do fiction, which I'm not doing for now. It's not my domain now. I'm focusing on one thing.
You get many enemies here.
If I start fiction, I think so, yeah. But it's a competition, I think. It's not really enemies. It's going to be, I think, if anybody living in Egypt here for the past 20 years, they will notice a huge difference in the quality of the books. The covers, the paper, the printing, the editing, everything really, really changed dramatically. And there is a big competition because there are newcomers always, and these comers always give you, entice older publishers to do a better job. So I think it's very good for them to have this reason to be better. If you're just there alone, it doesn't make sense. So you had a question that you wanted to talk? The last question, yeah, you had?
Yes, about the difference between the original text and the translated text. What are the boundaries here between during the touch of the translators on the translated text?
I will tell you two versions. We have also very clear vision in this in our work, and that's what we do, and sometimes I personally do. After the translator, we read the text. We read it as Arabic. We don't read the original, or even if you read the original, you read it pure Arabic. And does it make sense in Arabic or not? That's the main thing. Lots of times I read, especially with young translators or unexperienced one, and I can read the English sentence exactly. He's writing an Arabic version of the English sentence. We don't say this in Arabic. And it's terrible when it's even a dialogue or a conversation that it becomes like nobody's wayhak and stuff like nobody says this, you know. You just have to be realistic when you do text like this. In non-fiction it's easier because it's more proper, more journalistic even approach, but with fiction you really have to go to what people say and how it goes. And also you always have to translate the meaning of the text, not each word in the text. The worst is German. When I do German, I don't know why. It has to do definitely with the original language, but there is a lot of words that doesn't make sense in Arabic when they do. And you either have to omit it or you have to restructure the whole sentence to make sense. I don't know, because maybe all the German translators are, or most of the German translators are studying translation, so they are like kind of school translation, but they have to do each word in its place, and they will get minus mark if they don't translate this word. Sometimes you have to remove it. When I do English, sometimes one word has to be written in 3-4 words to explain, and sometimes a whole sentence can be written in one word, because we know this in Arabic gives the sense, the meaning, everything. So you have to have this sense as a translator and later as a publisher to do this.
Some parts are when I translate different text, I think that my text must have a life of its own. So the Arab reader can feel it and can interact with it.
I totally agree to this and accept this stuff. Totally. If you can do this, if you have the tools, because some people, and we had this case with one book that was supposed to be out last book fair, and it's not out yet, after it was finished translation, because we discovered that the translator added 7,000 words from his own to the text.
Wow.
And he said he wants to give a touch it down in the text. So this touch reached to almost another book. And it was discovered by not coincidence while we're revising, and then it was like, and there was like certain words, and he really didn't change the meaning in general, but he really, like a typical Egyptian who added his own touch to the word, which was like, oh my God. I was like, sometimes just a word like naked, which is like ayriya in Arabic, he wrote like لا شيء يستر عورته. يوم ولدته أمه بلا شيء يستر عورته. So why the hell is this? And there was no in the novel. There was no God. There was no. It was a kind of not fantasy, but the author had his own idea of the world. So there was no God in it, and he had to add his own touch in a lot of things, and we had to really re-transform the whole thing, which took even harder than retranslating the text from the beginning. Question?
Yeah, I was wondering, as an insider in the publishing market, how do you explain this boom in publishing houses in the late years? This boom
How do you explain what?
This boom of newcomers in the publishing market.
Yeah. And now we have a new generation of readers. As I told you, we discovered that 50% is under 24 or 25. That means that you have new readers. Some of the old publishing houses are not moving with this. They are still doing. The main problem of publishing is usually what happens is you publish a book and you try to find the reader. Now it's not. You have to find what the people want and then you publish what they want so you can sell. So the whole concept of publishing is changing now. So some publishing houses even publish just because this author has 30,000 followers. So if 1,000 bought the book, that would be great. And this works even with poetry. We had bestsellers in poetry because of this in the last couple of years, because they, not the quality, not the whatever, they've had some poets with 30,000, 50,000 followers. So definitely whatever they would write and get a book, you would have a huge book signing event. So newcomers, young publishers are really pushing the whole industry now. Questions? Yes?
There are some ebooks platform who is independent and is totally violating the publisher's right. Just the...
Not ebook platforms, there is the piracy issue. Whether printed or PDFs or scan books. This is a big problem facing, and I don't believe that it's really causing bankruptcy for publishers, but it's really kind of diminishing the profit that they can make. Because, for instance, if I do, simple example, 10 books, maybe I would have 2 stars to read. The profit would help me to cover the cost of the rest of the 8 books. So if this profit diminishes, I would have a problem. But it's a big debate. There's a lot of things like publishers are very greedy. They price their books expensive. I would believe that some publishers even now price the book really expensive in the terms that each copy is sold, it pays for the copy and half of a pirated copy. So they would get their prices. At the end, more or less, they know that some people will have to buy the original, so they are actually paying for those who pirated the copy. And I know some readers, they will never buy a book. They would have to download it or something. And I know some readers, they have like £200 to buy books. So if they go for the original, they will buy 4 books. If they go for the pirated, they will buy 8. So really, it's a big question. Nobody is pro piracy, but we as publishers have also to face it in some publishers now do a low edition of some titles. So they do like with the same price, not to be copied. And it's a really big problem if you have a bestseller now. If it's not that bestseller, then they don't pirate it. Then you make more profit than a bestseller actually. So it's kind of, don't you agree to this? A bestseller, you make less. If it's not really a bestseller, you get the full profit of the book. So you imagine that you're publishing a book and you really, please don't be that good. just there. So it's kind of strange. Any other questions? I don't think we have much time. Any more questions? Okay, finally I would want to add one thing. It's a really interesting job working in publishing. I've been working in publishing for 19, almost 20 years now. Plus I've been working when I was a student, and it wasn't that interesting for me in the beginning, to tell you the truth. It's something like, I always say, like having seeding in a mango tree. For the first 6 years, you don't get anything, and then it starts to get you things. With a book, it takes a minimum of 6 months to get the book out, and 3 years to sell it. Sometimes it takes 2 years with a book, and then also 3, 5, 10 years. So it's not easy. It's not. But if you like it, and I think if you find the right thing, it becomes really interesting. And working with translators, as we say, translation is can be really fun part, and can be really, if the main thing, if we have the same wavelength with the translator, if he understands the publishing house, if he understands how it works, then everything can come easy. And right now I'm enjoying it, so hopefully it stays like this. And thank you everybody for coming here, and we thank the Flemish and the Dutch Center for this, and I hope it was useful for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. It's good to hear from real life how this works. We have our questions. If there are more questions, I'm sure that Sherif will be willing to answer you in person. All that's left for me now is please keep monitoring our Facebook page. If you wish to receive our newsletter, let us know. Send us an email. They're on the leaflets in the reception area, and on the Facebook and webpage. We announce new lectures basically every Thursday, and our films are on Sunday evenings. So please come back, and let me invite you now for a drink in the hall. Thank you very much for coming, and thank you again, Sherif. Thank you.